Hello. Welcome along to our second last A Clash of Kings reread discussion. If I suddenly mute, it's because I'll be coughing and sniffing, and I don't want to annoy you and Claire, but the Oracle will take over. We are we're discussing from Davos 3 to Arya 10, which is chapter 58 to chapter 64, according to the wiki. And next week, we are reading from Sansa 8 all the way to the end, which is Bran 7, which is a spoiler, actually, the Bran part. And in case you're wondering, we will be taking a 2-week break because we have, Easter and bunnies and all that kind of thing. But there will be a new reread starting on the 8th of April for Storm of Swords. It's a big one. It's a 14-week one. So that is listed down below. Just watch the dates carefully. There's one date that's a Friday, not a Sunday stream, but everything else is on a Sunday. Same bat channel. And so sorry we were a bit late. We were gossiping and talking, not gossiping, but just chatting. We get chatting and we get off point and all that kind of thing. So so finishing the book for next week, and we are starting off with, we have 5 chapters based around the Battle of the Blackwater. And I suppose I should have mentioned this before, but we could almost talk about our first 2 together today, but we probably won't. We'll talk about Davos 3 first. And I'm wearing my Davos t-shirt, my Onion Knight t-shirt, because the last time we're going to see Davos now until Storm. So Davos 3, what did you think, Claire? Sorry, I didn't even let you say hello.
Hi. No, I was just checking the schedule. And that I'm glad you've put it in there, because that's great. I've got a picture of it in my gallery, and then I just it keeps disappearing. So, and
I'll set up all the live chats in our 2-week break, so you can hit notifications and you'll have the schedule and everything.
Fantastic. So okay, the big culmination of this book, in this book of the battle. So we've got the brutal, blood-soaked Battle of Blackwater. I think there's a couple of things in here that, I mean, it's brutal. It is brutal. This is a very action-packed chapter. So we've got Davos on the Black Bertha, and this is the chapter where ultimately all the boats explode together. He loses his sons, and the wildfire is loosed on the Blackwater, and there's lots of action going on. But in the middle of all that action, there's a couple of things that stand out for me. At the beginning of this chapter, where Davos is stood on the deck of Black Bertha and he's contemplating that even though he's found himself in this place that he's in with Stannis, and geographically where he is on this boat, and that he's in command, and that he is somebody, and he's got his sons around him, he's still Davos of Flea Bottom. So to the Stormlords, he will always be the Onion Knight, and there's somebody who's, he's beneath them, he's below them. So it just made me contemplate about, just generally in Westeros, somebody being raised to a lord is still not respected. So of course you've got the obvious ones like Ramsay being elevated to lord, and Jon Snow, yeah. So it's kind of like, it doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's going to be respected because they've been elevated in title.
Well, actually, every single character this week, with the exception of Sansa, who's actually demoted, every single character we have, Davos, Tyrion, Dany and Arya, they're all elevated to positions beyond
what they used to,
what the expectations were.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's funny, these groupings of chapters do tend to kind of link together quite neatly. It also makes you think about that argument between, just class systems generally in Westeros, and the lowborn versus the highborn. And then you've got somebody like Littlefinger, who was relatively, I mean, you wouldn't say he was lowborn, but he's grasped himself into a position and into a situation where there is a certain amount of healthy respect, and where he's elevated himself into a good, secure position. But that doesn't, but then you've got people like Davos, where it doesn't matter what he does, what he says, how brave he is, or how amazing he is, he's still always going to be Davos of Fleabottom, the Onion Knight.
Well, it's like Varys will always be a eunuch.
Yeah.
Mel, in her head, she'll always be the little slave girl, you know, that kind of way.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, stick to your lane, you know, wherever you were or wherever you were from. It doesn't matter what your title is now. That's kind of who you are and who you're always going to be. The storms were very severe. The winds and the storms were very severe. So they've already lost some of the boats. They're causing chaos, and a couple of the cogs have gone already, which again just makes me think, is there something magical going on here? Just this whole scene, the amount of destruction that the weather is causing, to me seems like, woof, it's almost like there's something going on there. There's some kind of, you know, we've got like fire magic, ice magic. Is there some kind of sea magic going on? And also if there is a sea god, or if you think about the Ironborn, what do they call their god? The Ironborn.
Sorry, the drown god. I was the drown. Yeah, no, I was just, I saw Sunny and I got got distracted because the pages now to YouTube mean that you'll be able to see the chat afterwards. So it comes up with my video. It'll come up with the video afterwards. So it's really cool. So people watching later will see the chat. With
this huge river battle, if the sea god or the drown god is part of this battle, it seems like this god might have had quite a lot of you know, human bodies, sacrifice, whatever you want to call it, especially when it's described that the knights, you know, the knights in their armor just sink straight to the bottom. So it's kind of like they're the first ones to be delivered to the drowned god. Davos thinks about how he doesn't like armor, and that I just think anybody in this series who talks about not liking knights or not liking armor or not feeling comfortable in armor, they're the ones that are the true knights.
So true.
Yeah. So,
well, apart from Joffrey.
Yeah. I mean, there's another couple of things in this chapter that jump out, but that thing there about just the scene, the weather, the drown god, and also the description of the wildfire being like these green entrails that sounds like a whip, like hands, like a whip, and they call it the, you know, it's like it looks demon. Like a demon. To me, that sounds like a kraken.
Yeah, no, it did. Yeah. I actually made a note of that as well, and I kind of forgot how graphic he was about it. I actually kind of looked at Tyrion, the next Tyrion chapter and the Davos chapter together, because they're brilliant companions to this battle, you know.
Yeah.
The one thing that stood out to me about Davos and Tyrion is their overall view of the battle, how they're trying to take in everything. You know, they don't want to leave anything to chance. But at the same time, it's Davos, the seaman, the sailor, really, that's going into battle. Like, while he's good, you know, he is a sailor. That's the important thing. I got just when you were mentioning the group of chapters this week. So we have Davos, Tyrion, Sansa, Dany, and Arya. I feel like those characters, those 5 characters, are going to be in the end game. I think they're all going to make it to Dream, and I feel like they're all going to be important in the end game. Because we have this sense, you know, at the end of the Davos and Tyrion sections, are they going to make it, you know, this week? Are they going to make it? And the way Tyrion and Davos approach battle, it makes me think it's foreshadowing a bigger battle, like it's foreshadowing the battle of fire that we may see on the battle of ice and fire that we'll see. Just from their perspective, because the one thing that neither of them do is take joy in death. And it'd be interesting when they face death. Even like Tyrion in his chapter, he'll see the gold cloak celebrating, but he won't do that. And Davos, like, he comments that there'll be many lives lost for Stannis tonight. But the thing he really doubts going into this is Stannis's use of his new house banner, that he should have arrived with the Baratheon colours.
A stranger's flag. That's what he thinks. It's a strange. So exactly what we've been saying all along, which is, how are people going to swallow this? And Davos verbalizes this. People will rejoice if there's a Baratheon stag. Wow, you know, the king has come again to take the throne back off these evil Lannisters. And
Renly.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone, exactly, yeah. And we see here through Davos's eyes exactly what we thought. All like, how are people swallowing this? This is a religion and a god, and I mean, not necessarily the enemy, not yet anyway, but certainly somebody to be suspicious of, because you're just not. This is something that's an unknown, you know. Very quickly something that's unknown turns to hatred and evil, and you know, and this is where Davos is describing this flag as the stranger's flag,
which is like death.
Like
death has come to King's Landing. And it is pretty horrific though what they do to Stannis's fleet as they arrive, you know, with the chain and the fire and everything. And, you know, it could be seen as dirty, but I think Davos is almost impressed by how they've kind of been trapped. But the one thing that is interesting is the decision is made for Mel not to come to the battle. And the reason why is because Stannis's men convince him that, you know, they shouldn't allow Mel to take any credit. And that made me wonder, was there a plan initially for Mel to go and like hatch another shadow baby to get rid of Joffrey? Do you think it's like Stannis's ego or Stannis's honor that prevents that? Or is it a bit of both?
Probably a bit of both. I would say probably more towards the ego in this sense, because it's just like, no. That's the thing that makes me want to leave it behind. Yeah, I want everyone to know this is my victory, not anybody else's. This is all me, and I'm the king. I need to make my stand in this battle.
Which is why Davos then starts to question why use that black banner then. If you're not going to bring her, just use the Baratheon banners, you know.
Yeah.
And like Davos is so clever. He instantly can recognize every single ship in the King's Landing fleet and misses, you know, the ships that aren't there. There wasn't a ship called Cersei, was there? There is a ship called Lyanna, but none called. Hi Annie, thanks for coming. And the towers obviously throw him off as well. And I love that line where he knows King's Landing like the back of his hand, but the two towers there, look, it was like his hand had grown 2 fingers.
Yes, yeah.
Just the way he describes everything from Davos's point of view, I don't know, it's just visually, it was way more interesting than anything else that we've seen in a while.
Yeah, and he knows straight away it's a trick. He can see what's happening immediately, and it's just this horror in a way that's unfolding in front of his eyes that he really can't do a great deal about.
But again, it comes back to that question: why are you there, Davos? You gave your fingers. You don't need to keep.
Yeah.
Why? What is holding you with this guy?
It's funny because I listened to a couple of podcasts and videos earlier today. I've been listening to In Deep Geek, who's an English chap.
Okay, I'll look
And
that
he
up.
does
Yeah.
he does quite a lot of book theories, and he does a series called The Traveller's Guide to Westeros, and it's like different locations where it's kind of like the rough guide, but he does it in kind of Westeros style. So I think one of the last ones he did was The Traveller's Guide to the Shadow Tower. So he does various different locations, like what to look out for and what you'll see in the area and that kind of thing. But he's done a couple of videos on Mel, like who is she, what are her motivations, and it's quite interesting that, I mean, you know, he goes into a fair amount of detail in the Mel specific point of view that we get much later on in the books, but he talks about Mel kind of being there. It's like it's never clear that she's sent there from the church, you know, that she's sent there on a mission. We know that Thoros was to try and influence the monarchy, but it seems like Mel is on her own mission for some, and it's like, well, why is that? What's the reason for that? And there's comparisons between, you know, she could be what she calls Sierra Sea Stone or whatever she's called, the daughter or the lover of Bloodraven, and that's what, you know, there's Sierra Sea Star, or I can't remember the name.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But Bloodraven's paramour, I think. So it's just kind of like, and it just seeing her being mentioned in this chapter, it's like, yeah, who are you, Mel? You know, there are I think a lot of readers see her as an evil character, and this chap was saying, this In Deep Geek was saying that George R.R. Martin had said in some interview that Melisandre was one of, if not the most misunderstood character in A Song of Ice and Fire. And it's like, okay, so why is she misunderstood? What yeah, so it's a tricky one. I'd like to know a lot.
I have never seen her as fully evil, and I don't know if I've been tainted by her by how the show has depicted her, but I don't think, I think Mel has an idea of what's going to come, and she's trying to do anything she can to, even if that means, you know, burning people. I think she'll do it.
Yeah, it's for the greater good, isn't it? It's the greater good.
Ian says, on Mel's iPod, Elvis Costello, please don't let me be misunderstood.
Yeah.
Welcome, Ian. That's a nice entrance. Thank you. Yeah, so I don't think, just that Stannis's men are incredibly brave. Like, they were really, really, like, way more brave than the Lannisters in King's Landing. Very, very brave. They don't, they're not, when we get into the next chapter with Tyrion, like, they're not holding back at all in comparison to the King's Landing guys. But yes, so no more Davos until Storm, I believe. I don't think we have a Davos next week. No, I think that's it for Davos.
Yeah, that's it. So it's brutal battle.
Brutal end for Davos as well, not knowing what's going to happen. Because I loved getting that fresh perspective in Clash from Davos. I just love his chapters. So then we're on to Tyrion, and we have a Tyrion Sansa like triple decker sandwich here. And so Tyrion is he's watching all of this, just direct aftermath of what we've seen with Davos, and he doesn't take joy in it, as I was saying, like everybody else around him. And Joffrey, of course, is like, oh, my ships. Like, Tyrion is like, can you just, like, everybody's dying to save your bastard ass. And the thing that stuck out to me is that, you know, Tyrion is just blaming Stannis completely for this. He's like, Stannis, you fool, blah, blah, blah. But he knows that Stannis is right.
Yeah.
You know, it comes back to that thing. that people just don't want to admit about Tyrion. He is a Lannister first.
Yeah.
Lannister first. And it always will be. And even though he goes out shouting King's Landing, that's just a PR thing. Like, yeah, like Tyrion is a Lannister true and true, no matter what they do to him. You know, they try and kill him in this section, in the next chapter, and he's still, and his dad doesn't tell him he's coming and all that kind of thing. But
yeah.
It's like what we've been saying.
He through and through, through and through, he's a Lannister.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this chapter really is just preparing for the next Tyrion one, which is the battle, the riverfront battle,
and for Sansa's chapter.
Yes,
with the Hound.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
Which,
so
I say, LaDonna has ruined for me. I love you, LaDonna, but I'm just like, I can't read it now. And I'm thinking of her theories.
Well, I read this time. I read it really quite differently. So yeah, but in this chapter with Tyrion, so he describes the Jade Holocaust, which is very descriptive of what's going on the river. A terrible beauty like dragonfire. There's a couple of times actually that other mythical creatures are mentioned in this chapter. He talks about the noise of the battering ram sounding like the moans of a dying giant, which again makes me think, are we at some point going to hear the moans of a dying giant? There's a few things that he realizes in this chapter. He realizes that, and again, this isn't clarifying things for the reader. The Hound is frightened of fire, terrified of the wildfire. He knows that people will not rally around him or around the king necessarily, but they will rally around for the city, to defend the city. So, you know, he's fairly savvy. Just that whole thing about protecting Joffrey by sending him to pitch antler men from the whores, from the catapults, and it just horrible. And they'd actually nailed antlers onto the antler men's heads before throwing them down into King's Landing. Horrible. So it turns out in this chapter that some of Stannis's men, despite the brutality on the Blackwater, have made it ashore. So in this chapter, we hear that the enemy has arrived on the riverfront, and this really is just a short chapter where Tyrion is preparing to lead the sortie and rallying the men for the riverfront battle, which happens in his next chapter. So that's really all we have.
Sorry, I was coughing and eating. Sweet potato brownies, and they are as grim as they sound.
Oh.
There's no sugar.
Oh.
Sorry, when I was sick, I was like, I need something comforting, and I found recipe.
Are you having sweetener instead of...
No.
So nothing sweet at all, apart from like natural...
dates in there.
God.
I know. It's pretty grim.
No, I need a drink.
Oh no, I still have wine. Yeah. Oh, and I have Coke Zeros from every now and again, so they're sweet.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm not a complete hopeless case, but I'm near enough. Yeah. So the other thing that I wanted to mention, there's a couple of theories around Tyrion, whether you think they're tinfoil or not. They do kind of come up, or they have an origins here and in the next chapter, and Davos actually. So with the Azor Ahai prophecy, which, you know, or the Azor Ahai character, there's a lot of, I know it's not a prophecy, but there's a lot of people that kind of represent that. So, you know, we do have a rebirth of sorts with Davos and Tyrion from the smoke and fire and salt kind of thing in this, because of this battle. And where it leads them, because it does put them on different directions, I think, in their lives after this. And we haven't seen the effects of this for Davos yet, but I think we're definitely going to see it in Winds of Winter if what happens, if we think what happens. That makes no sense, but I don't want to give any spoilers, so I'm not going to say anything. So that's the first year. The other thing is the Targaryen theory with Tyrion, which I hate. I hate the Tyrion is a Targ thing. I don't like that at all. I much prefer if it was Jaime and Cersei, because I think Tyrion has to be Tywin's son.
Time-wise,
I think there's
Joanna came back to visit King's Landing, and it was for something, to celebrate something, and not long after, when she got back to Castle Rock, she was pregnant with the twins. And then, in fact, Roarist has got a long, like almost an hour video on the whole history of Tywin Lannister, from like things that happened from when he was a boy, and his relationship with his brothers, that kind of thing, right up until like before the book start.
I think Radio Westeros have a great one on Joanna Lannister as well.
Yeah. It seems, timing wise, without going into it in too much detail, that she was around the proximity of King's Landing to get pregnant, and then she went back to Castle Rock, and then I think at one point she came back and brought the twins to King's Landing with her, and didn't Aerys take the piss out of them or something, or he denied Cersei, but I can't remember what it was, but he basically insulted. He said to something about Joanna's tits being saggy now that she'd had kids, or something like that, something that was really embarrassing to Tywin, which made him resign his hand. So if anything, I think they're probably,
I would love it. I'd love if they were Targaryen, because I think the incest thing and everything, it would just play out nicely, I feel.
It'd make a lot of sense, and there's lots of dropping hints about things like wildfire, and Cersei's eyes look like wildfire, and I mean, this is even before we get to burning the Tower of the Hand.
Also, the irony of Robert having defeated the Targaryens only to put Targaryens on the throne, because he's cuckolded. It would be brilliant. But I don't think we'll ever get an answer to those things. I think there'll always be things we'll have to theorize about. But it just comes from this chapter with Tyrion, or it doesn't come from this chapter.
So Jaime, I'm just thinking that means Jaime could have killed his father.
Yes, he could be a kinslayer. And he's hated being called Kingslayer all his life, but he actually could be a kinslayer.
Yeah.
Which opens up other possibilities for a Valancourt as well with Cersei. But yeah, just the thing that, like, he wonders in this chapter, he's kind of, like you're saying, he finds the fire beautiful, but he mentions, is this what it was like to be Aegon? To come in and take a city. And again, that might be foreshadowing as well. I kind of feel like it should be foreshadowing, or it's more likely to be foreshadowing than confirming any theory that he's a Targ. But I've seen it used as maybe, he'd love to be a Targ, he is a Targ, and wouldn't that be great? I think he's a Lannister true and true. I think he's more of a Lannister than the other two.
Yeah.
Once you get into those chapters with Jaime and Cersei, they don't think about being a Lannister ever, compared to Tyrion. Almost like they hardly ever think about being Lannisters.
Yeah, there's lots of hints towards that. I mean, again, there could be a million red herrings here, but when Jaime is doing the vigil, and Joanna comes to him in a vision or a dream or something, and she says to him, "I wonder if you knew who your father was truly."
Yep.
And there's so many things like that just, but again, there could just be lots and lots of red herrings, so who knows.
And I'll be talking a little bit more about Jaime actually when we get to Tyrion 14. So do you have anything else for Tyrion 13? Sorry, I'm going to mute because
no, nothing for me. I think this chapter really is just setting up what's happening next, which is the action at the riverfront. And again, the two Sansa, this chapter for Sansa is just setting up, I think, what's happening in the next chapter. But we get quite a lot of interaction here between Cersei and Sansa.
Yeah, we do. And this is Sansa 6. And as I was going through the Storm chapters, scheduling them today, I noticed, like, same with Game of Thrones when we did Game of Thrones last year, actually, at this stage, Sansa's chapters tend to kind of ramp up towards the end of the books. Like, we see more of her towards the end of books, and she never has a huge, well, she in Game, Clash, and Storm, she doesn't have a huge amount of chapters, but they all kind of come bunched up together, and that's what we have here. But yeah, she's yeah, so she's watching Cersei drink away, and Cersei, again, it's nice when we get into Cersei's head later on, but she is one of those characters, I think what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
The only thing you're really missing is the plannings.
Yeah.
But here, the penis envy is out on show. The lack of empathy is out on show. The things that she says, like, the Starks will have no joy from the fall of House Lannister. And it just made me think, I think it's going to be the reverse, you know? The Lannisters won't have any joy in the fall of Starks because there's a few people that'll take care of that, I hope.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed before the end. The Lannisters, you know, with the exception of Tywin and everybody else, like our three main protagonists, they are untouched right now. You know, Jaime, Cersei, Tyrion, they're all still a bunch. Like every other family we've lost protagonists along the way, particularly the Starks, but we haven't lost, you know, one of the big three POV Lannisters yet. Obviously, we will probably lose one or two of them towards the end. The thing that kind of throws me off with this chapter is the music and the food and everything.
Yeah.
It really throws me off. And the alcohol, like Cersei's getting really, really drunk. But Sansa promises that she'll rule with love. She won't rule with anger. And then, you know, they encourage the music to start playing. And they play the same songs, like always the same songs. Florian, Dragonheart, and Nymeria, those songs. It's always, you know, the go-to songs. And they're always to do with Sansa's arc as well. Which I don't know if that's a criticism of George kind of hitting us over the head with those songs. I don't know, especially with her. But yeah, there's not a huge amount. It's definitely the next chapter that I'll talk more about with Sansa. But I think it's really important coming out of this chapter that she promises that when she's in charge, she'll rule with love. Cersei's penis envy, and and Cersei accuses Sansa of treason because she's praying to the gods, which suggests that even in someone like Cersei, there is a belief that there's some power perhaps in prayer, at least in the motivation behind prayer. But yeah, so that's all I have for this chapter.
Well, similar for me. I think that it's interesting that we get Cersei saying, right, okay, here's Sansa, there's some things that you need to learn here. We're right down to the wire here. And in fact, we might all end up being dead very soon. So let me tell you, there's certain things that are expected of you when you're a queen, so you better learn them. And she proceeds to then go through this list of what you need to be a queen. And in Sansa's mind, she's kind of thinking, no, it won't be like that for me. And she thinks about making the people love her. She talks about, you know, like you said, the whole penis envy and what women's weapons are, and that the women are probably in for a bit of raping. But in this chapter, she does seem to, I don't know whether she does actually get her drunk or not, but she does seem to, I've just made a note here that Cersei gets Sansa drunk, which to me is important for the next chapter for Sansa. And the only other thing that I've got is about Cyrillin and Sansa thinking that as much as she's frightened of him, she doesn't think that ice would ever take her head, because that's her father's sword. Like as much as she's absolutely terrified of Cyrillin, she convinces herself that ice wouldn't take her head. And it's like she doesn't seem to think about, like, it took Ned's head, and it also took Lady's head as well. So this sword has taken some, has taken some important people and a direwolf and things, who she loves, but she doesn't think that it would ever take her own head. So I just thought that was interesting. It's like, is there something about Sansa that kind of makes her think outside of the fairy tales and the knights and the princesses and what have you, is, does she have this resolve about herself that's like, no, I'm fine, I'm not going to get hurt in this situation?
I think that's true of Arya as well. When they say, like, that's why I pointed out that she'll rule with love, because when they say something, they mean it and they'll see it done. Like, when they say this won't ever happen, it tends to not ever happen. Like, it's like they've got this it's not even foresight, it's just, I don't know, like The Secret. They visualize it. They're very unlike the male in the line. Like, that they seem to have that kind of, maybe they get that from Kat, when she says, like we talked about Kat last time, saying things like, she's kind of, her heart was empty and things like that, that there's, when they say it, they kind of mean it. There's like,
yeah. So that was it really for me. Cersei getting these updates from the Kettle Blacks backwards and forwards. And I've got even less than that really for Tyrion's next chapter.
I don't have very much for this chapter either. So he obviously, Stavros' men have arrived at the gate, and he meets the Hound, and the Hound refuses to go back out with his men, and he realizes the Hound is afraid, and there's no one really around, including Sir Mandon Moore, which made me wonder, if he had trusted Sir Mandon Moore, would Mandon have tried to kill him later? Would Mandon have kind of reneged on that? I doubt it. But anyway, the thing, so when he says to the people, don't shout Joffrey, shout King's Landing or whatever, made me think of Arya shouting Winterfell rather than Stark, going into her little fights. And the big thing for me in this chapter is how much he mentions Jaime, and how like he thinks about what Jaime says, and what Jaime would do, and all that kind of thing. So
only Jaime can save me. Who else is going to save me if not Jaime?
But also, never trust Mandon. Never, like, what would it? The battle fever thing as well. He thinks about Jaime an awful lot. Again, does that foreshadow Jaime being in that position later on, thinking about Tyrion? Will we see Jaime in a battle situation where he's thinking about what Tyrion would do, or what Tyrion has taught him, or what observing Tyrion has taught him? So that's kind of what made me feel that the battle fever thing as well. He says that he suddenly lost abilities to feel anything.
Yeah, battle drunk.
Yeah. And it's just the total opposite to Cersei, who is just drunk and is just like completely indulging every emotion she has on impulse. So it's just the complete opposite. It's just like Cersei thinks she could be out there fully plated, fighting
in battle. She'd be useless.
She'd be useless, absolutely useless. And then he says that his own killing was clumsy. As he was going through, he says his own killing was clumsy, and it just made me think, that's kind of ironic, because the person that's going to attempt to kill you, that's kind of clumsy as well. The way he puts it, his own killing was clumsy, is like, it was. It, like, Moore really does a clumsy job of it. But so that's all I have for this as well.
And just Podrick being amazing, Podrick, and swooping in and saving the day.
Because it's Pod and he's amazing.
Without question.
And again, it just comes back to that thing. Tyrion is a Lannister, and
yeah.
that's it. There's no, I don't like, I'm like, we're going to be saying this all the way through the rereads, and we'll be saying it all the way through season 8.
Yeah.
Please remember Tyrion is a Lannister first. I'm sorry, guys, we haven't. If there's any questions or anything in the chat, we're kind of flying through the Battle of the Blackwater, but it's just it's so action packed. There's very little kind of theorize or discuss, I guess, except when we get to Sansa 7.
Yes.
So Claire, take it away. Have you been convinced of Sansa?
No. It's Lady.
Oh. What about the puppies?
There's
we love you, LaDonna. We love you, LaDonna.
This is the chapter where, just to give some basics here, Cersei goes off to find Joffrey. Lancel realizes, oh my God, this is complete madness, and maybe the imp was right all along. Dontos tells Sansa, just go to your room, just go and hide. You just go and like bunk down in your room. Bearing in mind that Sansa has just been drinking with Cersei, so whether she's drunk or not, we don't know that, but just bear in mind that she's had a drink. So she gets into a room, and this is the chapter where the Hound comes to visit her before he leaves. So he's freaked out already because of what's happened at the battle and the wildfire. She's freaked out because what's just been happening in Maegor's holdfast, and she's been drinking. So that kind of just sets the scene up. The first thing that Sansa does is call for Lady when she first starts to feel uncomfortable. She calls for Lady, and if you carry on with that frame of thought, so she's thinking about her direwolf, and the Hound is there. I think he's there in this protective. She's lost a direwolf, and he's kind of her human replacement, whether he realizes it or not, or whatever his motivation is. There is it's just how this kind of patch like knits together for me. There's a part in this where Sansa thinks about the smell of him, the reek of blood, and she says it 3 times, and I just think that again is that strong connection through blood between the Stark siblings and their direwolves. It's like she's calling out, she actually calls out for Lady, and then she thinks about this overwhelming feeling of like reek of blood, and he says to her, after with everything that goes on in this scene, what the most important thing is, he says to her this quote about come with me. So I'm just going to read this, and I want you to think about what might Lady, this is taking a real leap here, but if you were inside the brain of, we get inside the brain of Summer, and we get inside the brain of Ghost. Just imagine that we were inside the brain of Lady. And this is the quote that the Hound says to Sansa. I could keep you safe. They're all afraid of me. No one would hurt you. I'd kill them. As soon as he said that, I just thought that's kind of like as if Lady was, it's basically, those are the words of her direwolf. He's kind of like the human embodiment of this protector. He is her protector. Whether there's anything romantic or anything that's going to happen later on down the line, I don't know, but he is there as the human manifestation of her protective direwolf. And that's what I got from this scene. Confirmation of that, basically.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Sonny is saying Sansa calls her wolf, but Sandor answers dog versus wolf. Yeah, I totally think that's it. And also, I think it's really important for Sansa. Like, Lady was the most beautiful of all the direwolves. Even Bran said, I think it was Bran or Arya said that in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And Ned says it as well, that Lady was really beautiful. And I think it's very important for Sansa to learn difference between aesthetics and inner beauty and what somebody can have to offer.
Yeah.
And I mean, the biggest thing in this chapter is her touching his face
Mm.
and not looking away and actually like reaching up to touch his face.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because I don't know if I fully realized until I got to the end of this chapter when I first read it that they're actually in bed together as well.
Mm.
So it is like you can see the sexual implications of that for sure. And I think, you know, if you haven't seen LaDonna's theory on it, it is quite convincing, I feel.
Mm.
And but for me, I don't think so. I think it is much more about the protection thing, like you're saying, because, you know, most people have their dogs in bed, right?
And you know, I know I do. Yeah. He doesn't. I mean, my dog doesn't have a dagger to my throat telling me to sing. But he's a Jack Russell, not a Clegane.
Although he does sing for you.
He does. He
Yeah.
does. He sure does. Just a lot of it just reminds me of things like, you know, the cloak symbolism. Oh God, that's, you know, marriage, a connection between them. That's the kind of obvious. But to me, the fact that she just like huddled into it and kind of slept in it all night.
Yeah.
I just think that, again, that's that protection. It's for comfort. It's as if she's snuggling up to a direwolf.
Yeah.
And get, you know, so that his cloak is almost like the pelt of Lady. Just that's how I read
And
all
I
of
think
the.
it's hugely important, I think, for Sansa's character not to define male and female relationships through romance.
Mm.
And I really hope we see them together again.
Mm.
I really, really hope we do, because I feel like maybe that we don't. Maybe this is the payoff that we need from. So do you think she still has that cloak with her? Because I think it's the one that she dies and brings with her, right? She
I
still
think
has it
so.
as a lane, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And sorry guys, I'm making all sorts of cold noises. And yeah, the thing that I had here was, oh yeah, Sansa is the only female character, female point of view to see the battle.
Mm.
And like we don't have any indication that Cersei sees it at all. And just again, the implications that might have in terms of foreshadowing, the different point of views that the different eyes on this battle, I think might be really important for where it goes. And do I have anything else? Yeah, I just had basically the same thing as what you said about the Hound. Oh yeah, interestingly that the Hound wants Tyrion burned, because why? Because he shamed him, I guess. Because it doesn't strike me that like Tyrion didn't really do anything to him.
Oh yeah.
Or is it just that he used wildfire?
Well, that's going to elevate you to like number one enemy in Sandor's brain if you're throwing around things like that. They do have this bit of a conversation about the battle before they get into the song and everything. And he says to her that he's lost all. And it's what do you think he means by that?
I don't know.
He's lost his dignity because of.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's like
He's definitely lost face in front of the men. I mean, I think as well, he doesn't have he like the Mountain would never not fight.
Yeah.
I'm sure stories of the Mountain on, was it the Trident? No, the Crossing. No, where was it? The last battle that we had with the Mountain, where he was fired upon by several archers and still survived.
Yeah.
It's kind of the Mother's Mercy thing as well. That's
Tame the fury.
Yeah, that seems to be foreshadowing the Hound and Arya as well getting together. But I do still think that Sansa is going to be holding puppies at the end. I don't think they'll be hers. I think it may be offspring of other Starks that get married, but I don't think it'll be hers. But she may have to raise them.
Yeah, yeah.
And
anti Sansa.
and she's still married to Tyrion. When we're going into Winds.
Yeah.
So the fact that the Hound hates him and wants to burn him is quite interesting.
Yeah.
He's going into Winds, and potentially will he have to protect her from the Lannisters or Tyrion or that marriage? Who knows? So because when he hears later that she married him, he's not happy about that at all.
No.
So yeah. So it is, and I don't think he's not happy. I don't think it's a romantic thing. I think he's just not happy about because she's his little bird or whatever. But yeah, it is. It's a beautiful chapter though. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Really, really beautifully written, especially with the bells at the end and Dantas coming in. But another thing is, she goes from Cersei being really drunk to the Hound being really drunk to Dantas being really drunk.
Yeah.
And just where she can use that. Oh, hi, Barbara. When Sandor leaves, he's losing his purpose and connection to everything he's ever known. Yeah, that's so true. And, having Sansa there has given him purpose beyond protecting the king. I think he actually wanted to protect somebody that was good, which is Sansa. And yeah, so just the Tyrion, Sansa, the Tyrion, Cersei, and the Hound, or sorry, excuse me, Cersei, the Hound, and Dantas. I think they're all very important in the idea, and just the fact that they're all drunk and stuff. I think they're all very important in Sansa's escape as well, whether it's her emotional and mental escape through Cersei, because Cersei gives her very harsh but very valuable lessons as a woman. She doesn't have anyone else around.
Well, when she says best learned, Sansa does precisely that.
Yeah. The Hound offers her escape, and of course Dantas promises her escape and helps her escape. So yeah, just the idea of those guys being drunk and still managing to achieve a purpose. I think that's important to Sansa. It's an important lesson for Sansa to learn, because she's thinking, well, if you're not drunk, think of what you can do. So yeah, so Sonny says maybe Sansa reminds the Hound of his sister. Yeah. Did the mountain kill his sister?
Yeah.
You're never going to be right, like with the mountain being your brother. So, and Barbara thinks that as well, that it's about the sister. So that's it for the Blackwater. And I don't think, I mean, we have some decent battles and fights coming up, I guess, but I don't think anything will come close to this until the Battle of Fire with Barristan Selmy, potentially. That's the one I'm really, really, really looking forward to. So this just got me, I could just keep thinking about that, especially going into the Dany chapter. I was like, oh my God, I need wins. So coming into Dany 5, and only 5 Dany chapters in Clash, which is surprising. And we've had like a lot happen, but I suppose there is just a lot of waiting around. I'd say there's a lot of Moses in the desert kind of thing with Dany.
Yeah, and then she just seemed to be in Carth for quite a while as well.
Yeah. So
although she's clearly outstaying a welcome here.
Yeah. So obviously, yeah, it opens. I got distracted at the beginning. It opens with her eating cold shrimp and persimmon soup. That is so gross.
Yeah.
Like persimmon is like that. It's kind of, my husband hates it. It's like it doesn't know if it's a fruit or a vegetable. Kind of that peachy consistency, but not quite as soft.
Yeah.
And it cold. Oh God. So anyway,
there's a name, isn't there, for cold? There's a name for cold soup. I'm trying to think.
Gazpacho or something.
That's it, gazpacho. Yeah. But that's like a vegetable, tomatoey kind of soup.
Yeah. And it's just like, how do you even make soup out of persimmon? But yeah, it just sounds gross. Just again, more evidence that this is not the best city in the world, or the best city there's ever been, in my opinion. Clearly they haven't heard of Thai food. So Dany gets a bell in her hair from the Dothraki.
Yeah.
Because she killed the Meiji, but she doesn't feel she should take it because it was actually Drogon that did the work.
Yeah.
But she takes it anyway because she doesn't want to insult them, and kind of enjoys the ringing in her hair. So she doesn't wear the bells anymore, does she?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Well, she's in the book. She gets. Well, yeah, because her hair's growing back again, isn't it?
Yeah, but that'll tell you how long she's been in Parth. That her hair is long enough to braid and put a bell in. So she must be there an awful long time.
Yeah, well, and she traveled. I mean, it took them quite a while to travel through the Red Waste as well.
And it strikes me that description of Dany, she refuses to take cover going to the docks and all that kind of thing. She wants to ride out there like a normal Dothraki regal kind of person.
I thought this was actually kind of mirrored Tyrion's chapters, because I've just put at the beginning of this chapter, another waterfront scene.
Yes,
it's like we're at the docks again. We're on the waterfront, but this time, and there is danger again in this chapter, but again it's different to the kind of danger that Tyrion faced. He was in full battle, whereas this is a sneaky way of waging battle against somebody. Absolutely. So it's a similar kind of thing, but they're at the waterfront and they're both like being assassinated, or an assassination attempt.
It kind of made me think, because I love the fluidity of Dany's approach to her costume and her rule, that she does try to mix the masculine and feminine sides of her to try and constantly marry Dothraki with all the other cultures she picks up going along.
Yeah.
And it just made me think it's so funny coming off that Sansa chapter, because this is, Cersei would die if she saw Dany being able to do this.
Yes.
It would kill Cersei.
Yeah.
It's, she can blame Jaime because she's a woman and she's in Westeros, and she can feel bad about Jaime getting to play with swords. But here's Dany, and she just took it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you'll never be able to do that, especially if Cersei ever found out she's a Targaryen and capable of potentially birthing dragons. It'd be brilliant. But Ion says some persimmons are poisonous. Really? I like them. They're all right. Is the bell symbolism of Dany taking the Westerosi crown? It's definitely interesting coming off the Battle of the Blackwater that she does get that, and she doesn't think she deserves it. But already are there forces, like Wildfire is stronger because of her and her dragons. It's only strong because, so in effect, has she helped win this battle? Is the fooling with Renly and his ghost, is that all kind of part of it as well? Like, is Mel's ability to send a shadow baby stronger because of Dany? So she was influential in an unknowing way in this battle. She was influential in the Blackwater.
Yeah. And well, her influence in terms of the magic, and in this chapter, Zoan, Zoran, Doxos,
Jim to his friends.
Jim, yeah. He talks about strange times and magic and just weirdness happening with, and again, there's reference here to glass candles burning.
Yeah, that's the warlock's curses.
Yeah,
People see that as a curse because they link it with ghost grass growing again, phantom tortoises, which I don't really get, and rats eating their own tails. They say that's the warlock's curses because of what she did to them.
And there's lots of weird, magical stuff, and these powers seem to be amped up. So other people are noticing this.
Are glass candles then? Do people not like them? Are they seen as, because they're listed as part of the curses? Like, I always think they'll be cool to have around, but obviously people are suspicious of the magic behind them.
Yeah, I mean, it's an indication that magic has returned when the glass candles are lit. So there's, I think, just a general fear about that. Strange times, as Doxos puts it.
Sunny asks, Zara says the glass candles are burning in the house of Urathan Nightwalker. Where else could the candles be? Well, we know, thanks to Dance, that there's definitely candles in... Is it Dance or Feast? Yeah, in Citadel. I mean, potentially there's glass candles. There, you know, Qyburn might have access to a glass candle, but perhaps Varys may have access to a glass candle.
Yeah.
There could be a few more around. Illyrio, maybe.
Maybe.
So anyway, yeah, the big thing about this chapter obviously is who we will learn later on. Barristan has shown up, and she notices straight away the dignity in his face. And I did like her bartering with the guy selling the brass. And then at the end, what am I going to do with this dish? It's like someone just trying to kill you. She's funny. She's funny, and I love the game that she was turning it into a game with him. You know, everything. Nothing is worth that. Your whole stall is worth 20. So Ian says the glass candle 4G light network. Yeah, probably better than 4G. So Jorah wants to push on east, and Dany is really confused. Until
why does he want to keep doing? Is it just because he knows he's going to be exposed as a spy? So. Does he want to keep him just all to herself? It's because when Barristan turns up, or Whitebeard and Strong Belwas, he says that they were sent by Illyrio to bring her back to Pentos, and the realm bleeds, and you must come back. You must come back this way. So yeah, she is left confused by the end of this chapter. There's a few things here. Jorah doesn't recognize. I mean, did you, when you were reading this in the books the first time?
No, I didn't. I didn't realize.
I had no idea.
No, I kind of forgot about Barristan. He's mentioned a good few times at the beginning of Clash, and then he drops off. So yeah, I didn't realize it was him. No, I didn't. I didn't really make. It throws you that they came from Illyrio, so you don't investigate it. I feel in your head maybe. Ian said they no idea at all. So it's great. It is great though.
That was a good reveal. Yeah.
Lisa Hendy asked me in my Q&A on. She asked me when I come to Canada soon, and she also asked me who my favorite Game of Thrones characters are. And I've joined 3, Davos, Jon, and Arya. But Barristan is definitely in top 5. Yeah. Definitely. I absolutely love Barristan.
He's a great character. And the actor as well who played him in the TV show was actually a real fan of the character in the books as well. Yeah. Because he was, I don't think he was particularly pleased at what they did with him in, you know, at the end in the TV show.
We sought out that where they ended it all in the TV show, because it's not part of any tour that we did when we were in Croatia, and we just reacted. We paid homage. I think I remember reading something about him not being happy about that. Ian says one of Gurm's benefits of having so many characters, you just assume it's character number 500 or 501 and not someone you know. Yeah, I wonder, Jorah doesn't there's something familiar for Jorah, but he doesn't quite recognize him. But I feel in hindsight, it's like when you're looking back at all the Bolton stuff, especially in Arya's chapter next, like it seems like Barristan is almost giving him the answer. I saw you here and I saw you there. And like, you think if Jorah was smart enough, he might go, well, who would be in a position to see me?
Yeah, I think his questioning is limited to just that basic sort of observation of like, why is this guy a squire? And he's just so, you know, it's like, why is like what's going on here? And that's the bit that he's confused about, rather than like, who is this person?
And I think
yeah.
Barristan is savvy enough to know that Jorah is probably quite a narcissistic person, maybe more so when he was younger. And so he may not have paid attention even to the greatest living legend. Like he is a living legend in Westeros, a missing living legend as well. And like it's kind of like we'd recognize Sean Connery, the young Sean Connery and the old Sean Connery. You know, even though the old Sean Connery has a beard now, you'd still recognize him, right?
Yeah, so. Yeah, exactly. And you know, he was a huge character.
But I think it says more about Jorah than anything.
Yeah, yeah.
There's also a mention in this chapter. Dany says a really interesting line, which I thought you liked, which I thought you would like, that she began running in her mother's womb.
Yes, yes. Yeah, she thinks about running all the time and being on the run all the time. And this could be how she was brought into the world. Who knows?
But if her mother is the mother that we all assume is her mother, they weren't really they only did one run. Like they only did one. Like it's not like she was like it sounded more like she was continuously running, or she had that feeling of continuously running, which would make more sense if her mother was somebody else.
Yeah, yeah.
Who was continuously running from conception, if you know what I mean. Barbara says, has it been explained how Barristan knows how to find Dany, or how he knew to go to Illyrio and in Pentos? I think it's pretty obvious that I think it wouldn't be difficult to find where Dany and dragons are at this stage. I think stories would travel fairly quickly, right?
I think Carth is the biggest main city that she's going to reach when she comes out of the other side of the Red Waste. So while she was in the Red Waste, there's plenty of time for Illyrio to be plotting and
she's already met the captain that Sam will meet later on. So we already know that people have seen her.
Yeah.
And she met him like months and months ago. So news will travel quickly. But also, Jorah was sending information right up to the time the dragons were born, which was after Barristan. Sorry, the dragons were born after Barristan was fired by Joffrey, I think. So I'm not sure if it didn't happen. It did happen that way chronologically in the books, yeah. Dany's timeline is either really far behind or really far ahead. So it's kind of, at the moment, I think she's quite far ahead, right? Like the hair seems to give the indication is that she's quite far ahead. It would have taken a long time for Barristan to get there. So, and she seems to, as you said, she seems to have been there quite a while. So, in Carth at least.
Well, there's another couple of things for me in this chapter. When she thinks about the House of the Undying and what they say to a daughter of death, dragon has 3 heads, and the mummer's dragon. And I think this is when she's having a conversation with Jorah, and he's saying, what do you think that means? And, you know, what is the mummer's dragon? And she says it's to give the hero something to fight. So, like, she's explaining what, you know, that she, in this vision, she saw crowds and like the kind of the puppet of the dragon on a stick with cloth and everything. So she's saying the symbolism is it gives the hero something to fight against, which again is like, is that a foreshadowing of Dany having to fight Fagon or Aegon later on down the line, her knowing that this mummer's dragon needs to exist for her to have something to fight and be a hero.
It's all, yeah, I think that's a really good, I think that's a really good observation. She's a bit she's really disturbed by the whole 3 thing and what it means. Like the 3 ships, and then she's very disturbed by all of that. very disturbed by the fact that it's Rhaegar.
Yeah.
That delivers the message, child of 3, and she doesn't quite understand that. But the other thing in this as well, sorry, I've completely lost my train. Where am I? Shoot, no, I've completely forget.
Well, the other big thing for me in this chapter is the similarities really between, well, for me, and I think it goes back to discussing the tree outside the House of the Undying, where the leaves are blue, and how we talked about the similarities between the weirwood trees, so blue leaves, red leaves, but it's still this like magical paste. Just the obvious similarities that I didn't really see certainly the first time I read the books is you've got the House of the Undying and the House of Black and White, and you've got the faceless men, and you've also got the sorrowful men. So it's kind of like the faceless men obviously are linked to the House of Black and White. Are the sorrowful men linked to the House of the Undying? Are they like the assassins that are linked to it? They just seem to kind of mirror each other a lot, the organizations and the assassins, and then all the kind of magical stuff that kind of surrounds it as well.
Yeah, the person that ran away as well, they're very quick. Like you've got Barristan Jorah, her blood riders, nobody could stop that guy, which is quite interesting. Do we find out who that was?
No, he just says, "I'm so sorry," doesn't he?
And was that an assassin sent by the Robert Baratheon? Is that no? It's not the same. That was different. That was the wine. Who sends that assassin? Do we find out now?
Oh, that was one of Robert's.
What? So Robert sent the guy with the wine. Does anyone in the chat? Is it Illyrio?
Which one?
The Warlocks? No, who sent the guy with the scorpion? Is it one of Robert's? It seems very long after Robert died.
Oh, no. This will be, well, I think this is one of the Warlocks, isn't it? One of the Warlocks.
It is one of the Warlocks.
Another one of the Warlocks' curses, I would imagine. They're trying to, they want to get rid of her now.
That's in the way they played in the show, but it's a little girl, isn't it? Weird, kind of weird little girl.
Yeah.
That's what I was just wondering. It is the Warlocks. It's the obsession with the prophecy. The other thing is how she's completely unfazed by this scorpion, and Dany goes from having incredibly good instincts to having hopelessly bad instincts. Like with Xaro, Xaro says, listen, you knew what I was in it for. I want everything back. I want you all gone. You knew I was in it for the dragons. I'm not in it for any other reason. And then she thinks, oh, aren't I very lucky? Aren't I very clever? I didn't marry him. Yeah, but you probably would have if you thought you were going to get your ships. But it's obvious that he can't get you ships. And even Jorah was telling you not to. But then extremely good instincts with Barristan. Like, let's listen to this guy. This old man. Look, I can trust this old man. So And I think she's. Do you think she's a bit, a little bit disturbed by what Drogon did, or what he's capable of at such a young age?
No, I think she embraces it. I think she probably embraces it, and I think if anything, she's just, it's just because she doesn't know what he is capable of. That probably concerns her. It's like, well, what is this power that I've got? But I mean, at the moment, what she's presented with this weird prophecy and the dragon must have 3 heads is she's got 3 dragons. So she knows, you know, and there are other things like, oh, there are 3 ships in the docks that are just ready there for her to, you know, things seem to be lining up for her in threes. But the most obvious one is she's got 3 dragons.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I suppose what I mean is, I wonder, is there a small part of her that wishes she could do it on her own without the need for dragons? That wishes she could just take Westeros with an army like everybody else, but she'll have to use dragons. But yeah, no, that's just with what she was. There was a couple of things there, the 3 heads, that kind of made me think that. But yeah, so it was not very much from Dany in Clash. It's just kind of we're just waiting for the dragons to grow up, and she even says that.
Yeah.
I wish, like, I could just go away and let the dragons grow up. And of course,
yeah,
we would have been due a big gap, like a 5-year gap. Isn't that what George originally wanted to do? I don't know whether it would have happened here after the Red Wedding. Is after the Red Wedding he would have done that gap?
I'm not sure when I think he wanted to do it between. Didn't he want to do it for Dance for? Oh, I can't remember. Maybe it was this. Maybe it was for Winds of Winter. He wanted to do it.
Yeah, I can't remember. Well, we're getting it. We'll all be grown up by the time it comes. Sunny says it's almost as if Barristan reminds Dany of William Darry. Yeah, that's true. And interesting that you mentioned Darry, because moving into Arya's chapter, Arya takes great pleasure in the prospect of people getting their comeuppance, and Gendry notes it. And the Darrys are one of those people that she's delighted that there's potential that Roose is going to go and burn down their castle, and she takes great delight in it. And I might be just having a complete brain freeze. Did Sansa already find out that Bran and Rickon were dead? I don't think she did, right? I don't remember. Don't remember that.
No, I don't think anybody's told her that yet. No.
So it's just when Arya finds out in this chapter. Oh God.
Yeah, how she holds it together, I don't know.
I don't know.
God, yeah.
Poor child.
Yeah.
And it starts off with this. It's a very long chapter, this, actually.
But it's not just Bran and Rickon. Winterfell has gone. It's fallen. So it's a home. It's everything about who she is. I think this is a real seminal chapter for Arya. I mean, the big thing is in this chapter, she decides that she's escaping Harrenhal. And I suppose it's the things that happen to her in this chapter and the things that she hears that provide that catalyst for her. But there's lots of things in this that lead me to my final point on this particular chapter is, will she be forgiven for all of the killing that's taken place, and the killing that she's had to do in the situation she's in? Will she be? Because it ends the very end of this chapter is where she's thinking that it's okay that she's got blood on her hands from killing the Bolton's guard, because the rain will wash it. It's raining, and the rain will wash it away. And I just think, does that mean that will she be forgiven ultimately, or will she? There's this chapter, there's a lot of like, is Arya going to die? Is she going to make it? Is she going to be forgiven? Because from rereading this again, we know what's going to be happening to Arya's character as she progresses. So this one here with her leaving Harrenhal, which is her leaving, in a way, it's leaving the infrastructure of Westeros. She's out now. She's out in the big wide world with nobody to tell her what to do. This is where she's kind of out of the game when it comes to being plugged into what's happening in Westeros.
Arya, in the first 3 books, Arya always ends leaving somewhere, right? So in Game of Thrones, it was leaving King's Landing, and here it's leaving Harrenhal. And it always marks this huge like departure in where she's going as a character. Is there Marwyn problems in Poor Marvin. Yeah, the thing that really, there's so much in this chapter. When I was reading this, I was thinking we could do nearly an hour and a half on this chapter alone. She meets, so a couple of things. She's refuses to be a snitch. No matter how bad the person is, she won't be a snitch. There's this amazing bond with her and Gendry, and you know that he can read her in a way that only John, Cyril, Jack, and Ned, like all the men in her life, read her very, very well. I don't know if we don't really see her with women, so it's hard to tell, but all the men read her really, really well. And Gendry is one of them. He like sees the pleasure she takes in death, and it's very creepy for such a young girl. And of course, the other thing is that it's her future husband she meets, right? The Frey kid is supposed to be her husband. It's not, or is that Sansa's that she meets? Is the Frey kid the squire?
Arya is the princess.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So when this is another thing about, is she going to die? Is she going to make it? Because she says, I hope your princess dies, you know, at the end. First of all, she thinks, you know, I don't care about your fucking princess. I'm not interested. And then at the end, she gets so angry that she says, I hope your princess dies, which is like, that's you. Yeah. So what, you know, what does this mean? Yeah.
She also says something to, I can't remember the exact thing. It just came through there. Something about leeching the neck, or there's the way she puts it. It's like, how much blood are you going to allow run before you get to the north? You know, it's like there's a big kind of, geez, Arya, you're just getting started on your quest for blood. Ian says this and the frozen in the snow foreshadowings do not bode well for Arya. Yeah, and I like the wolf, because I think Arya is definitely going to be a wolf at the end of this. I think she's so happy to disappear into the characters she takes on. Like it's incredible how she's able to disappear into Nan when she finds out that news about Bran and Rickon. And also incredible how quickly she just thinks, well, then I'll just have to stay here forever. I'll just go and see if they want me here forever, and goes to Roose and says, can I come with you? And he says no, and you know, insubordination won't be tolerated. You're going to stay here and work for Vargo. And yeah, she's just like, right, if I can't stay here and work for Roose, then feck it, I'm going. I'm not hanging around here. Oh, you're on mute, Claire.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, Sonny Frank, I'm being distracted by my little direwolf here. Arya thinks Ned is speaking to who is it really? I think that I think it's Nymeria. I think she's having massive warging type of stuff. There's loads of weird things that happen in this chapter that relate to her just losing her shit when she finds out about Bran and Rickon, and that immediately, especially with the feeling of Winterfell is no more, Winterfell has fallen, she literally doesn't, she feels as though she doesn't know who she is anymore. And magically what happens in this chapter is she gets access to a map and to a dagger, and this helps her to identify back to who she is again, I think. But there are other things, like she's in the when she goes to the Godswood, and she very kind of nonchalantly says to the Heart Tree, Valar Morghulis, and that's just like, wow, that's that mixing of religions again. Like she's saying Valar Morghulis to the Heart Tree, which made me think all sorts of things about, is the Faceless Men's religion linked to the old gods, and is Valar Morghulis the words that were said in the old religion before somebody was sacrificed in front of a heart tree? You know, I mean, she does kill somebody in this chapter. She doesn't leave them in front of the heart tree, but just the fact that she says Valar Morghulis to the heart tree. And then there's this thing. I think one of the big catalysts for her in this chapter is Roose and Roose's men hunting for the wolves and bringing the pelts back of the wolves. I think this is consciously or subconsciously is the thing that triggers Arya into, I am a wolf, I'm not an owl or whatever, I will howl. And she hears the wolves howling and she starts to hear Ned's voice and she hears his words, the lone, you know, when the cold winds come, the lone wolf dies and the pack survives. She's hearing Ned's words, but I honestly think that this is a real strong wolf connection thing going on here, and that this is what she's getting from Nymeria, this bravery to be able to say, I am a wolf, I am a Stark. She spends some of this chapter really not quite knowing who she is, but by the end of it, again, she takes strength from, when she needs that strength, she takes it from Yoren, from Jack and Hagar, from Syrio Forel, from Jon Snow, all of these influences of brave men in her mind that she takes, that kind of reminder. But the biggest thing for me, the big catalyst, is the wolf.
Yeah, and even Hot Pie and Gendry, like Hot Pie to come out with the wheel of cheese and the sack of bread, like that takes a certain amount of bravery.
Yeah,
but it is what you were just saying there about Roose as well. She must be registering that on some sort of subconscious level, that things are not right there. They are getting ready to turn on Rob. And even when he comes back and he says, I'll have the pelt made into a blanket, and someone says, oh, they're soft enough to make into gloves. And he says, oh, you know, Starks do say winter is coming. See that it's done. And it's like he's almost putting on a Stark skin. Hey, Marwyn. Marwyn, we were talking about your glass candles there. Are you all right? Look at you. But yeah, just that he puts on, like he's getting ready to put on the Stark skin almost to wear it, like flaying. But then she kind of preempts that by putting on the Bolton colours and leaves with like the Bolton sigil on her. Like she's getting out of there. She's going to have the upper hand, kind of leaving. The thing that you're saying though, right before that kind of, and I'm not sure if that's like, I don't want to play the Bran card too much. If that's a Bran thing, you know, potentially sending out this like massive wolf pack strength to her and potentially Sansa as well through the lady moment.
Yeah.
Or what? But what does trigger that is when she's talking to Frey, young Frey, and he's crying because he's not marrying his sister. He's told that basically a pact seems to have been broken. Now, that we'll obviously find out that that's Rob marrying Westerling, right?
Yes.
So that's the pact that's broken, and the implications of that are huge. But yeah, so it goes from a pact broken to a pack being broken as well. Like the wolf pack is in her mind, the wolf pack is broken forever, and she needs to get to Riverrun to try and get back to some sort of pack. But yeah, just that kind of pack broken, and then it's just like she gets that really strong message from the weirwood, or from Ned, I guess. But she hears voices all the time. Like she hears, even in this chapter, you know, she hears Syrio all the time. She hears Jaqen all the time. She hears John all the time. You know, those characters come back to her all the time.
Yeah.
You struggle to find an Arya chapter where she doesn't reference something one of them has taught her. Even later, that with the Hound, you know, there's always something, you know, quiet as what is it? Still as clear. No, quiet as clear water. No, quiet as still water. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Syrio didn't train me. But yeah, there's always seems to be something. Yeah, and the leeching of Roose is really weird.
It's vile, isn't it? Well, I mean, there's all sorts of theories about him being, you know, the child of the offspring or progeny of another, because he's described as like the pale man and fat pale leeches, and yeah, there's like otherworldliness that's kind of associated with Roose, I think.
And the way she has to burn Walder's letters for him and stuff. Really odd. Qyburn
Well,
gets
there's all sorts of betrayal. This is the beginning of all sorts of things here. The all of the lords that Arya's overhearing the conversations seem to think that Robb has lost and that he should bend the knee, and you know, all is lost. So it's not easy to see from here that there's going to be this betrayal at the Red Wedding, which is the next big thing that's going to be coming up. But there's another couple of things for me in this chapter. Right at the beginning, where she's thinking about, and sorry if you've already mentioned this, I think Marwyn's just being a bit mardy at the moment. It's like, I want to be up here for a bit. The secret language of whether or not, like the crows being able to talk, like communicate with the dead. And again, it's this notion of like lost secret languages, and whether or not I mean, we know that the ravens had a language at one point that was lost. And, you know, is it the case that the crows can communicate with the dead? And is this something to do with, like, you know, is there a language between the crows and the ravens and like the whites, like the reanimated dead?
It's just that idea
of
dark wings, dark words, and
yeah.
It feels so. She might be more upset over Winterfell being lost than Rickon and Bran. I don't know.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit like that. I mean, it's the whole package, really, isn't it? It's the North, and then like feeling like hearing that the North might be, you know, Robb potentially is lost.
And she says Robb will never, ever, ever, ever give up the North.
Yeah.
And we find out that basically through breaking that pact, he kind of does. Doesn't mean to, but he does. Yeah, the idea with the leeches. Do you think that'll come up? Do you think? How do you think that'll play out? Because it's mentioned a lot in the chapter, and she even thinks when when Walder says, "Come home and I'll give you loads. I'll give you a true-born son," and she pictures a baby covered in leeches in a cradle or something. It's really dark. Like what? I'm just wondering, is that foreshadowing something Arya is going to do to Bolton's? Is there something? There's something involving blood with Bolton's there. Did I mention Qyburn is mentioned a lot in this chapter? I think I did. Just what that means, you know, Qyburn later on and what he is capable of doing. And also the thing that she comes up with, Vargo cutting off the left leg or the left foot of everybody if Gendry stays. It's like, jeez, like she's really, and you know, and Gendry saying, "Oh, all your friends, you know, one of them is a paedophile, one of them is a cannibal, and you're taking pleasure in what they've done." And you know, and she's like, like it's there's no way back for Arya.
No, she's already way past that point, I think, now.
And also Roose is taking way too much joy in the war. Like the fact that it's almost it's almost a method of relaxing for him, you know. He's going out hunting, he's getting his spa days with the leeches, you know, he's thriving off the planning of it all. There's just too many red flags with this guy.
The only other thing that I've got really from this chapter is Biter and Raj. Could Biter be Reek, like the OG Reek?
Oh, maybe.
It's just the way that he's described. I mean, he's vile anyway, but the way he's described as like the smell, there's this particular smell about Biter that's just like.
But how would he have gotten to King's Landing? Because isn't that where he came from?
He did come from, yeah, because he came from the crypts, didn't he, at King's Landing?
It's great. It's just so disgusting how he's described as well.
Yeah.
But like the whole thing is just like, you know, it does feel like as dark as it is, it does feel like a bit of an Eden Blyton adventure is about to start at the end. With the three of them setting off. If you ignore all the blood and the war and the pedophilia and the mutations, it does sound very exciting.
This is
the dog.
But as from now, from this moment onwards, she's, it's all kind of self-determination until she gets to Bravos, obviously. But she's doing her own thing,
and maybe with the Hound as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, and even like it's very creepy how she kills the guard, luring him in.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's something she learned obviously from Jackin with the soup as well.
Mm-hmm.
So she learns fast. But yeah, so I think that's our last Arya chapter.
Yeah,
if I'm correct. So we have Sansa. We have another John chapter, I'm guessing. A couple of Tyrion chapters.
Yeah, we've got.
Chapter.
We have got next week. Yeah, it's Sansa 8 to Bran 7. So
yeah, so I think there's a Cat, Tyrion, potentially John in there as well. So yeah, and that'll be the end. That Bran chapter, obviously, at the end. And I'm very excited about Storm, I have to say. I look forward, like when I was putting it together and seeing Jamie and Samuel come up, and it's like, and we get a good lot of Jamie as well, which is good. I do like Jamie. So yeah, so that is it for this week's Clash of Kings reread. The last one is next week. I am going to try and make it a bit of a summer project to download these and hopefully re-upload the audio files on some sort of podcast thing, but I have to look into it. So I don't want to promise it for sure, but I think it's possible. So hopefully I'll be able to turn these into more podcast kind of friendly. I might start doing it with the Storm straight away and then go back and do Game of Thrones. I'm not sure. I'll see how long it takes. But yes, so the Storm of Swords schedule is in the description box. And Claire is linked down below, obviously, as always. So thank you so much, Claire, and thanks to everybody in the chat. So look forward to talking about the end of the book next week.
Yes, looking forward to it. Thanks,
Have
everyone.
a good week, everybody. Bye.
Bye.